Well, welcome everyone. I'm so happy to see you today. I am Diane Lang, and we are presenting this forum kind of as an extension of our stewardship campaign. We'll talk about things about Trinity that touched our heart and our soul and our mind, if you will. And we're going to continue that today with a couple of stories or anything that anyone has on their heart or mind that they'd like to share about what has not only brought them into Trinity, but kept them here. So I hope you enjoy. Also, I have several people here who are going to present in addition to me. And then what we'd like to do is invite anyone to share anything that you might like to add. And so it's not a formal presentation, but rather hopefully more of a conversation as well. Okay. So again, I'm Diane Lang, and I came to Trinity right before the pandemic. I believe I started coming here in 2019. So it was kind of a rocky time to come because I just started coming, and then of course we had the pandemic. So it took me a while to get to know people here. But in addition, let me introduce to you who is going to be presenting, who volunteered very bravely, might I say, to be a part of this panel. We have Ginny Hill here. Bob Peterson is here. Darlene Croston is right there. Judy Arabasala is right there. And Karen and Bob Bankley are right there. And so they'll be joining me as well. Okay, well, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I'm a Lutheran born and bred. I did, catechism for 3 years, went to Sunday school, got confirmed, baptized, of course. My parents were charter members of the church in Vestal. And then I married a Lutheran. How rare is that? And joined their church, my ex-husband's church, and his parents were charter members of that church in Vestal as well. So, and my grandparents were charter members of the Lutheran Church in Wego. So I'm a born and bred Lutheran, and the fact that I'm in an Episcopalian church right now is kind of odd. But I'm very happy to be here. But I will tell you, through all of that, I never felt really emotionally connected to the churches that I was in. I liked them very much. I was very active. I did things, church council and so forth, taught Sunday school, VBS, all of that stuff. But I never really felt emotionally connected to the church in a way that I do now. What happened was my husband and I separated. I felt that I wasn't welcome in the church that I was married in any longer because his family continued to go there, and I felt like an outcast. So I stopped going, and I was happily unchurched for about 19 years. And it didn't trouble me at all not being a part of a church after being so fundamentally churched for so many years. But at around 2018 or 2019, I began to get like a tapping on my shoulder. I feel better telling the story after Father Glenn's sermon. And it was a nagging, constant thought that I had. Get to a church, Diane. You need to find a church. And I used to call that my voice when I'd hear my voice. And sometimes I'd listen and sometimes I didn't. But this time I did. And so I started visiting churches around the area. And they were all fine. Nothing wrong. But I had a friend who went to, and still does go to, All Saints across from Lost Dog. And I went there. Christchurch. Oh, okay. That's where he goes. Christchurch. And I went there. Again, it was fine, but I didn't feel drawn to it in any particular way. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try this Episcopal church. So I walked in one Sunday and I listened to Father Glenn's sermon. And I can't tell you what it was about, but I can tell you that when I heard his message, I knew then this is where I need to be. There was something that he said, and it may have been kind of educational because I love that he educates us about the culture, about the language, about all sorts of things from the Bible. And I love that part. Or it may have been how he interpreted the Bible and put it in today's world and in the challenges that we have. I'm not sure what it was, but it was great. I can tell you it was great. In addition, of course, the choir, and at the time we had Tim, the organist, was fabulous. And I was so moved by a church that had such a beautiful music program, even though you don't want to hear me sing, but I was very moved by that. And then afterwards, people came up to me and greeted me. And I was honestly kind of shocked because I had never experienced that in the other churches I had visited. And I felt so welcome. And I thought, this is it. This is it. So I came back and continued going. And then, of course, we had the challenges of the pandemic. And then we started coming back to church again. And in June 25th of 2023, it was a Friday night. I was crawling into bed. And all of a sudden, I experienced excruciating pain in my right hand side, such that I've never felt before. It was worse than childbirth. And I was shaking and sweating. And I crawled into bed. It was Friday night. I said, I don't want to go to the ER on a Friday night. No way. So I crawled back into bed and I fell asleep when the pain subsided. And I slept all Friday night, all day Saturday, all Saturday night, and woke up Sunday morning, very sick. And so I called the ambulance and I went to Wilson ER, which is where I work. I worked at Wilson and Binghamton General. And as soon as they got me in there, they knew something was very bad. What had happened is my intestines ruptured. And so the amount of drama in the ER when I got in there was pretty high. And they got me on the gurney going into the OR very quickly. Now, I have to share with you through many of the years of my life, I've been rather an anxious person, worrying about everything. I was raised by a lovely, worrying Italian mother. And so I learned to do that. And I've worried my whole life and have battled anxiety. But while I was in out,
Oh, no.
at any rate, I was on the gurney. I was going into the OR, laying on the table, and I remember looking up at the clock and it said 10 o'clock. It was 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And I remember thinking, everyone's going in church. That was my only thought. Everyone's in church and I'm not there. That's what I was thinking. And they came up to me and they said, we've got to go. You don't have much time. And they took me and we ran. I had a major surgery and I was in the hospital for several weeks. But before I went under the knife, as they say, somewhere along the line in that ER, I said to someone, please tell my church, Trinity Episcopal, that I'm here. And somebody did. And several days later, I was in the hospital and in walked Raylene. And she prayed with me and I was thrilled to see her. And I was overwhelmed that someone really came from my church to visit me. And it was really quite nice. Afterwards, I came home. I had two surgeries within 95 days of each other. They had to repair me on the second surgery after doing the life-saving procedure that they did on the first. And so when I came home from both of those surgeries, I could not walk because of the abdominal work that they did. I was on a walker. Eventually, I went to a cane, and now I'm walking, thankfully. But also when I came home, they told me I could not lift, I could not reach, I could not push, and I could not pull. I didn't know really what I could do after given all those limitations. And so Raylene and several people from this church who have become wonderful friends did so many things for me. And I've always been a very independent person. I was kind of like, no, that's okay. I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. And I had people take me to the hospital, take me to doctor appointments, pick up my prescriptions, offer food, take me to doctor appointments, take me to my second surgery. It was absolutely amazing. And I will tell you that I've never experienced that kind of support from an organization. Never. As a matter of fact, not since I was a child have I experienced that kind of support. I mean, they even took out my garbage and my recycling for me because I couldn't lift anything. It was amazing to have that kind of support. And I have to tell you that when I walk away and think about what I've learned from all this, because I've done a lot of thinking about that, a lot, I can tell you that I believe, first of all, that it was divine intervention when I got the tap to get a church. I've thought about that many times. And I'm really glad I listened to that voice because I needed this church. My children live out of town and I'm divorced and alone. And so the community that was here was invaluable to me. I can't even tell you how invaluable it was to me. I know I was on the prayer list for the better part of a year. And for the first time, I really felt as though people were praying for me and it was necessary. And I would benefit from it. I learned fundamentally in terms of my faith, not just religion. Like when I was a child and I went through catechism and did all that, I memorized the books of the Bible and did all that stuff. And I learned the liturgy and I did all that. But I've learned since being here that there's a lot more. Religion is kind of the rules and the regs, but faith is a relationship with God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. It's a relationship that we carry with us daily. And it's with something that sustains us when you're brought to your knees. And I'll tell you, that was the first time in my life I've ever experienced that kind of an incident where I questioned everything about myself and about my life. I never had anything that difficult that I had to overcome. And so my faith has grown tremendously. And not only that, what I've learned here about faith in action, I've learned that action is what defines us as Christians. How we act, what we do for others, and what we say are the things that truly make a difference in whether or not we're perceived as Christians. And I'm happy to be a part of this community. I'm so grateful for Trinity, you have no idea. And the community. And isn't that right? So I'm super happy to be here, but I don't want to take up all the time. I want to introduce to you the several other people who have offered to come. Now, what we're going to do is you can stay seated where you are, but when you speak, if you want, is it okay if you come up here to the podium? Whoever? Yes, that'll make it easy for people at home to see us. So the Van Cleefs are right here. Why don't we start with you?
Right out of the bag.
Absolutely. And you can come on up.
You want to go?
They're going to come up one at a time.
My wife is for. Oh my God.
But this is Karen Van Cleef. Welcome, Karen, and thank you.
And thank you.
Karen Van Cleef.
And I we had a little tussle. Like, who goes up first? Do we go up together? We really are separate, honest. We really are. I didn't quite know what to do with today. Because a faith journey or seeking or whatever it is that you call it is so personal. It is so also hard to describe. And I was born into and in stamped with approval the Swedish Lutheran Church. And it was probably as doctrinal as any place you can imagine. I hated it from the time. I mean, from as far back as I can even remember. I really hated it because I felt so controlled. And anyway, my family became part of a mission church. It's a Lutheran church in Horsehead. And Horseheads was growing and they needed a mission church there. So we were founding members of Our Savior Lutheran Church. And I went because I was told to go. I did the whole catechism stuff. I did it all and didn't like it. I didn't feel heard on any level. And I didn't feel any of this religious stuff you're supposed to feel. And I was a kid, and apparently that was a lot for a kid to be thinking about. And anyway, the minister there, the pastor that was there, he saw that in me and, talked with me about it. And he said, the Lutheran Church does have things like being a nun. And I thought, is this guy nuts? And apparently he was. But it was also, I did not have a good childhood, let's put it that way. And I sort of rejected anything that had anything to do with helping me, which was part of what a church does. I literally ran from the church. You couldn't drag me into a church. Then, not Bob, and we were together for 5 years and couldn't conceive. And so we decided that we were going to adopt. And back then, they would inquire everything about you, including who is your faith advisor? What church do you belong to? And at that point, I don't. You want me to be Buddhist? I'll be Buddhist. I will do whatever. And we just said Lutheran or Protestant. I don't know what we said. We lied. We lied a lot. And then we ended up going to sister's church, a Methodist church. And I went because I felt like I was supposed to. And then we moved to Shenango Bridge, and by then we had 2 kids. And everyone that I met that I really liked went to that church. And I realized that it would be unfair to the kids not to introduce them to religion so that at least when they're adults, they can choose. They can choose on their own. Doesn't mean that I have to believe. went through a series of priests, all of whom were very, very, very different in their approach, high church, low church, all of it. They were great teachers. And I went through a period where somebody said, "Oh, you're just in the desert." Get there. And finally one of the priests that was there started feeding me books to read. And I suddenly realized that the Episcopal Church was where I needed to be. You don't have to check your brain at the door. And I threw myself into it. There was nothing at that church that I didn't do, from being warden to being bishop search, you name it. I mean, and I did it. And then COVID happened, and then our priest retired, and we were sort of left dangling. And I didn't know quite what I was going to do. And when you talk about getting tapped on the shoulder, I was sitting there and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Shut up, sit down, and listen. And when people say, "Oh, will God talk to me?" I suppose that was my time. And a new priest came. No priest ever replaces the last priest, and they're all different. But this person's approach was about out of 1953. And it was the church that I had left, I had run away from, in my mind. So we decided that we weren't going to be at that church anymore, but that we needed a community. And we actively went to a number of churches, but mainly Episcopal. Walked in here and I was just immediately sucked right in. McCaffey's not half bad. I understand him. I feel like he is speaking to where I'm at, but also I'm prepared to listen again. And I didn't get that anyplace else at all. And I wasn't feeling rebellious, other than when apparently I'm still not ready completely, because I've been approached, "Well, would you like to help on this or help on that?" And so, "Oh no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready." But I feel enough connected to this place. I trust it. I trust my soul with the community, that they'll be here to catch me when I'm ready. And I can't imagine being anyplace else. It's beginning to feel like home. And that's all.
Very great. You did great. Thank you. And now, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the cookies.
My name is Bob Van Cleek, and my story is completely, well, it's kind of the same, but it's completely different than Kara's. I was brought up as a Methodist, and I hated it also, like Karen said, with the Lutheran Church. The whole thrust of the Methodist Church, the minister that we had was Sunday school, you have to learn the script, memorize the scripture. And I still have no idea what I memorized then. Absolutely none. I left high school, like everyone does when they're a senior, and the church is now gone. I didn't want to have anything to do with the church. um, and then I met Karen, and she didn't want to have anything to do with the church, so it fit right in with me, perfect. And there was still something missing though with my life, and it really came home to roost when we decided that we would adopt. And Karen said, I'm Lutheran. I said, I'm Methodist. And we joined the Methodist Church, where my sister was attending, Methodist Church in Vestal. And went to the coffee hour, and not a single person spoke to us. It was like, what is this? It was amazing. We had to have the church there in order to get the adoption. But where's the community? Where's the church with the people that let's be community. We left the Methodist Church and then went to a Lutheran church in Johnson City, and basically we're there for 5 years. Karen became an important part of the church in terms of vestry and leadership, and I actually taught Sunday school, believe it or not. And then it was like, this is where we had our daughter, Jennifer, confirmed. Not confirmed, but baptized, excuse me. And then we decided, well, we're in Shenango Bridge, we'll leave and go to Shenango Bridge. The Methodist Church, well, the Episcopal Church, we flipped the coin and we joined the Episcopal Church in Shenango Bridge. There was no priest there. And then I'm sure that you folks have heard of Paul Kowaleski. He was the new priest just mandated for the Shenango Bridge Church. And Paul Kowaleski, Karen turned it to, it was like there was an attraction with Paul and Karen, and it's like all the books and all the learning. I remember now Karen saying, 3:00 in the morning, she wakes up out of bed and like, man, this is, Christ is in, is in me here today, now, and will be forever. And gosh, I wish I had that, is what I'm thinking, but fine. And then Mark Giroux, Kowaleski left, and Mark Giroux came along, and Mark Giroux's approach to religion and faith and belief and all that was quite simple. It boils it down to love. Simple as that. And 25 years with Mark was beautiful. And then he left, and Dawn Victoria, I believe her name is, came along, and Karen was right. This is not 1950 again. So we decided to leave St. Mark's, and we came here. And what attracted me to Trinity was music, was a big thing. I was part of the Downtown Singers for 15 years, and George Frederick Handel was phenomenal. That music is incredible, and plus all the spring concerts we said. But and here the choir at Trinity, well, professional, slightly. It's not really totally professional, but it's professional. And it's like, yeah, does my heart good. And then, by the way, there's Glenn Mahaffey. Every sermon every homily, every thought that comes from him relates to me and my journey here. my journey, today's was you have, if you're in the dark, in order to see the light, you have to go through the darkness to get to the light. And that was that's so true. My faith journey is, believe it or not, Karen's is further ahead than mine. Forget the comparison here. I have a difficulty at the age of 77, believe it or not. I still have the difficulty in taking a belief, which is not, a 150% belief, taking that belief and turning that into faith so that I can, like Diane said, her faith, and like Karen had at one point, and like you all have, a faith that is strong. I'm on that pathway. I hope I got enough time to finally get to where I need to go. But I joined a Bible study group with it's called Digging Deeper with St. James, and there's like 6 of us that are digging into Scripture. Believe it or not, I'm 77 and I'm doing Scripture all over again, like I was when I was 15. One important thing as part of that is Andy Pierce was a friend. He was, and is still a friend. He was in the Digging Deeper, and with what happened with Andy and the pain and darkness that he's going through, it just is. I just need to pay attention to taking care of what needs to be taken care of in my faith, and it's growing. And I'm just really happy to be here at Trinity. There's no question about it. And thank you, Jim, for getting me to be a counter. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Patty, why don't we just continue going up the road here? Hey, Arabasala.
Good afternoon. The boss has told me to make it short, so I'm going to give you an abridged version. As most of you know, I was born in Nigeria and came here, as a young man to go to college and stayed. I come from 3 generations of Anglicans. My grandfather was a priest, graduated from college in 1900. So I didn't have a choice. I have to go to church. I used to hate it because you have to dress up with bow ties. So I'm always fidgeting like this. And my wife have experienced church in Nigeria. You think one night is long hair? The service in Nigeria may last up to 4 hours. So imagine a little kid who just had a light breakfast. And after that, my mother has to visit some of her friends. So by the time I get home, I could eat a beer, So from first grade through high school, I was in the Anglican boarding school, which means you pray a lot. Morning prayer, evening prayer, prayer when you eat, when we're in elementary school. And then on Saturdays, they give us a pocket money. Implicitly, 50% of that pocket money is due for Sunday to put in the plate. So, of course, guys, we devised methods of acting as if we put something there. Then they had somebody watch us to make sure you put money there. That was okay. But going to high school, that is where the challenge was, because we prayed 10 times a day. When you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, then you go to the chapel. After the chapel, you go for breakfast. You pray before you eat. You pray after eating. Go to class. You pray before you start classes. After that, you go for lunch. You pray before you eat. Pray after you eat. Then you go to have siesta. After siesta, you go back to class. 10 times a day. So much so that I was doing everything I can to run away from that. Dodging under the bed, going up in the ceiling, which we call going to the moon. Just doing everything to run away. But one of the other things that they did was that on your first week in the boarding school, in high school, they give you a list of 100 songs. You have 2 weeks to learn the first and the last verses, all of them. If you do not, you are going to be punished. Well, I didn't like it then, but luckily for me, down the line, it brushed my memory on how to memorize a lot faster. It was good since I come from an an Anglican Episcopalian family. It's not strange to me, but I don't know why I was doing what. I mean, I went through the motion. After I finished high school and came to college, I thought it was just me. That's when I started realizing the benefit of being a Christian in terms of living it, not just on Sunday, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What you believe is what you say, and what you say is what you believe. So that you live the faith by how you relate to people, and people will know. The reason why I'm glad my son is here is because I didn't want him to know about all of the bad things that I did. And then I came to find out almost all of my classmates from high school were the same way I was. They didn't understand anything when we were there. And now that we're far removed from the school, we are always, practicing the faith up till now, all of us. I mean, some of them are bishops and stuff like that. But that is the way things went. What I did, everywhere we go to live, we try a couple of churches and then usually decide on one church as a family. For us, when we came from Connecticut in 2016, we went to a couple of churches in town and then decided on this church. When you told me to prepare for this, I didn't just go, to riff it. What I did was to write some things down, to make sure that, because I had maybe about 15 reasons, and then I kind of condensed them to 4 reasons why I personally, not as a family, I personally as a person, why I love coming to this church. Attending this church has been a meaningful decision in my life. It shaped both my personal belief and my family. One of the main reasons why I choose to attend this church is my faith. And the church promises a place where I can grow spiritually, learn about God, and strengthen my relationship with Him through worship, prayer, and studying the scriptures. Number 3, by the way, as I go down, it's in the reverse order. The last 2 are the most important reason why I chose to come to this church and why I still stay with it. Beyond personal faith, this church is also a place of community of faithfuls. It's where I connect with people who share similar values, support one another through life's challenges, and serve together in a way to make a positive impact on life. And the last reason, which is the most important, is that this is a place for me to model for my son on a way of being, among other things. He was a freshman in high school when we came here. When he graduated from high school, nobody impugned on him that you have to come to church. But you see what he's doing. I don't have to tell you that. That goes to show you that children do watch us. They may disagree, just like I did. I chose not to go to church. I did everything just like Saul, becoming Paul, just away from it. But I still come back to my roots. As you can see, that is what, he also has taken up on it. We don't tell him to come to church or not come to church. Actually, was it 2 weeks ago that he asked me to take him to go buy another Bible? Because he misplaced the Bible. Can you imagine a young man spending money on a Bible? This church is a church. I love the music. I love, Glenn. Even when I'm away from here, South Carolina, in Illinois, every Sunday after I come back from the church that I go there, I always go on the YouTube to go over the church, what happened here in church. And the reason is because this church is family. And family take care of one another. We may disagree about things, but when you look at the brass tacks, it's a family and we take good care of ourselves. I was telling you about the choir before. You see, that's the reason why I don't sing in the choir here, because they are almost professional. But thank you for listening.
Yes. David, did you want to say something? Oh,
No, I mean, she thought you had a question.
there's a program. Oh,
Okay.
we'll catch you in a couple minutes. Ginny,
Talking.
this is Jenny Hill, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenny Hill. My story is a little different because I was born into this church. So I've been coming here all my life. I've never left. And I guess the reason I've never left is because I was happy growing up in this church. I had, a good relationship with the church as I was growing up. I mean, I was born in the time when there was a lot of kids in the church, and I spent a lot of time here going to church here in the choir, and we had a strong youth activities, played basketball. We had basketball teams and we played against other churches, and we had other activities. I spent a lot of time here, and it was a good time, and I had good memories, and didn't always like Sunday school, but for the most part, I liked everything here, and I continued to go here. And then when I got married, my husband was newer in the area and didn't really have a church. He had grown up Methodist, but he was happy to come to this church. So we've been coming here. We've raised our kids here. And to go back a little bit further, I remember coming to church when my grandmother came to this church. So I have memories of coming to church with my grandmother. So, I mean, this feels like home to me because I have a lot of memories here of the past and memories of my grandmother and my parents. And I like the liturgy. I've been to other churches with friends and other people, and I know when I go to other churches, I just don't like it as much. I like what we do here. And when I go to another church, I've been to other Episcopal churches, and it's just like, oh, I feel just like I'm here because it's the same thing. They go through the same service, and it's like being here. And people have changed. The ministers have changed. I've been through a lot of different ministers, and some are better than others. I mean, Glenn's wonderful, but the community of faith has always been wonderful. The music has always been wonderful, and that's why I don't leave. It's always been good.
Rick and I remember singing in Thank you, Jenny. And Hudson, would you like to come up? And then Darlene.
As most of you know, I'm Bob Peterson.
Oh, Peter. Sorry, I said the wrong name.
That's all right. In the bulletin a few weeks ago, I was Peter's Don. My religious background is varied. I was a Baptist until I was about 20 in 1959, and at that time I met the girl who would become my wife in 1962. She was Presbyterian, and I thought, I'm going to start going to the Presbyterian church because it means I can spend more time with her. So we stayed Presbyterian. We moved around the country quite a bit and landed in Binghamton in 1971, joined First Pres. We were there until 1996, when for personal reasons we left and ended up at St. Mark's with Karen and Bob. And by the way, something neither one of them mentioned was that we all sang in the choir there.
You got more room, you know. I'm a baritone.
But that ended with a bang on March 22nd, 2020. At the end of the sermon that Sunday, the pastor said the church is closing until further notice. The bishop had mandated that the churches in central New York close. It was safety to try to keep people from the pandemic. Well, that started me thinking. I had not been really happy there for a while. My wife loved it. She passed away in 2015, which was 5 years earlier. And for her sake, I said, I'll do it. And we participated. I was lector, a psalmist, sang in the choir, did quite a bit at the church. But I just thought it's time to move on. Well, Gene Hensler and I have been board members of the American Guild of Organists chapter here for about 20 years. And at one of the board meetings, she knew my background and what I had been thinking. And at one of the board meetings, she said, Bob, why don't you come down to Trinity? I'm sure you will enjoy the music. Well, it took me a few weeks to mull that over in my mind. And finally I walked in and, I like the most favorite instrument in all of the plethora of instruments is the pipe organ.
Yes.
I love pipe organ. The only thing that enhances it is a trumpet.
There you go.
I love pipe organ and trumpet. But at any rate, I ended up here in 2021, in the fall of 2021. Now, what has attracted me? Well, first of all, the fellowship. It's a very warm, friendly congregation, sometimes so warm that it startled me because people would come past me and say, "Hi, Bob." Who are you? It's taken me a long time to assimilate names, although I did find that there are a number of people here from First Pres Church, which we were members of for 25 years. And also Karen and Bob and Diane and Dave Pearson have come down from St. Mark's. So that's been good. But the second thing, of course, is the sermons. And we've already talked about that quite a bit. For me, I feel that I'm on a journey. And in fact, I think all of us are on a journey. And I'd like to read a short part of a prayer of confession from the Ramapo Reformed Church in Mahwah, New Jersey, where my folks were married. I love to go to that church when I'm down there just to feel like I'm with my relatives and friends. But what this says is, God of wisdom and God of truth, we are quick to recognize the wisdom we hear from your word, but slow to acknowledge its claim on our life and put it into practice. And I think that's what we're all working at here. When we read the Bible, we understand, we think, what we're reading, and we try to apply it, and that's where the rub comes. So Glenn I really, really enjoy him. He's genuine. He has a gift to be able to explain scripture in its own context and bring it forward to us to apply in our own lives. And that truly is a gift. He is the only pastor, I think, in my entire life that I've heard who has been able to do that. He challenges traditional thinking. You know, the thoughts that I've had for a good share of my life, and all of a sudden I find he's challenging that, and he's got a good reason for it. And he has also answered a number of long-term questions that I've had in my mind. And don't ask me what they were because I have a great memory, but it's short. But over your lifetime, you read things in the Bible, or you read things, you see things, and you have questions. Why? How? He has answered some of those. The third thing, of course, is the music. I've already said that the organ is my favorite instrument, and Judy and I sang in choirs all of our lives. An interesting story. I came into church one day and sat down and was looking at the bulletin. I got a tap on the shoulder. Would you come out in the hall? I thought, uh-oh, what did I do now? It was Steve Crowell wanted me to join the organist search committee, which I was very happy to do, and I really appreciate Randy. He was, in my mind, the top candidate. Where was I going to go with that? Anyway, the other thing that I really enjoy is singing. I had a lead role in a high school operetta and then went subterranean for quite a while until I met Judy in 1959, and she had been part of her church, of her college choirs, and occasionally they would ask for friends or neighbors to come in and sing. So I did that, and then once we were married, we sang in choirs continuously. I have been very blessed throughout my entire life. And I feel that what I can do for the churches that I have been member of, and this church is to pay forward for a lot of those blessings. I am very fortunate to be able to be a lector, lay Eucharistic minister, choir member. I've been a sometimes organist, a treasurer, church treasurer. I served on the session at First Press, helped Judy teach Sunday school classes. I was a scoutmaster for 7 years at Shenango Bridge Church, and I have led morning prayer services at Shenango Bridge. You talked about faith. Somebody else talked about faith too. As I mentioned, my wife passed away in 2015 after spending 2 months at Johns Hopkins. She had scleroderma. And yes, I miss her. I still miss her. But I came to realize that sometime later that I think the reason that the Lord took her away from me was because he wanted my attention more than I had been giving him. So I'm thankful for that. And this experience here in this church has done a lot to strengthen my faith. So I thank you all.
Thank you. And last but not least, from our panel, Darlene Creston. Come on up.
Good morning, everybody. Straight on. So my background is a little interesting, like many, and I really enjoyed hearing the variety going on here. So my father and his father are both Assemblies of God ministers. My father is now retired, he's still living. And I literally grew up in a church. When you talk about planting, mission churches, my father's was a mission church. We started in a storefront. And to give you a general idea of my age, in 1972, also adopted, and you and I have had those conversations. So I'm the oldest of 7 children. We had 45 foster children growing up because that was a supplement of funding. But at the age of 11, I was 11, my mother turned to me and said, I really don't want to do this anymore. You're in charge. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to drive vehicles in the morning, in the afternoon. It's your job now to get the kids out and help them with homework on the end and walk the babies and et cetera. So, but everything revolved around the church. We literally lived in the church for the time I was 6 to the time I was my first day of my senior year. We had an apartment. It was the back of the church. It was a 4-bedroom apartment. We all managed to live in that. And so my whole life revolved around a Pentecostal experience. It was Sunday morning, Sunday evening was church. In the middle of the day, you had one large meal. Wednesday night was church. And then there was always the VBS, the revivals. And again, living in the church, you're there. That's it. And so there was also the sense that I felt that I was in a bubble. It's many times being in kind of a public face. And so you're the object of, well, why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? Sometimes very judgmental, very legalistic implications. And I went to a Baptist church for part of my childhood in the senior high school time frame. And again, kind of relating with Teddy, a lot of the rote types of things, but not really addressing where are the kids at. The adults are talking up here and they're not really meeting what are the day-to-day issues of the children. What are they needing in their experience and how to connect? And so I always say, when you're talking, that really reminds me of the scripture, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. And so I think a lot of times there's that good intention of various schools and things. I taught Sunday school for 20 years with the 4s and the 5s. But my way was reaching out. Where are they at? What do they need? Making the treats. If we were doing the story about gathering the fishermen, I'd make cookies in the shape of a fish. Hand out put your nets out and let's catch your fish today. But try to build everything around that. But I still, as a church pianist, so again, growing up, I was always competing against my grandmother. My grandmother played for her first wedding when she was 12. I didn't beat that. I did when I was 17. And I always felt inadequate because I was chasing her. And funny story, my father was up until about 2-3 years ago, the jail chaplain for the local county. And back in the day, he could actually sign out a prisoner that was heading up the river to one of the state prisons. And if he had maybe an expectant girlfriend or something, and we could marry her off, and he would be allowed and trusted to drive that prisoner up to the church, meet the bride, we'd do the thing, and he would take the prisoner back down to the jail. And so I always said I was the shotgun wedding specialist for the pianist. So anyway, we moved downstate. I was very involved in a church there, kind of threw it in. It was a guy that was the pastor, happened to be a day different in age from my father, very similar personality. I never called another man pastor because to me that was saying dad. I always said reverend. So went through that. And again, Pentecostal is a totally different experience. The music, you have the standard hymns, very much like a Baptist, but you have a lot of these chord driven musics. And so I play them very well. I'm comfortable with it. But after I was about 30, all of a sudden I really started to feel as though I didn't connect. It didn't relate. Now I would look at it and I say, okay, other people seem to be connecting. This is helping them in their spiritual journey. Okay, great. I'll just do it for them. Fine. I'll keep playing. And then finally, I was having an issue. I was the main pianist at First Assembly. And the minister at the time was very, very controlling. And I don't do well in those environments. And so he was being very nitpicky on things. I'm not getting paid. It's all volunteer. And so finally, it came to a head and I just said, I think I need to move on without giving details. And so I went and I played for the Free Methodist Church at the time, and it was all hymns. I loved it. And then they started to shift to another model, more and more of the chord music. And as a musician, for chord music, it's so, I can't describe it, but I don't want to get lost in it, but I can't emphasize enough. It's almost like torture, because you're playing the same thing over and over. There's no, at least with regular music, you've got a melody line, you're able to, it's very mentally dumbing down when you're doing the chords. I can do some flourishes to a point, but it's just boring. Anyway, it just really was killing my soul. And what we were doing was we were doing the churches in the theater. So we were roadies every week, setting up, tearing down, setting up, tearing down, setting up, tearing down. And it was exhausting. But I was doing it because, again, I'm thinking, okay, everybody else is happy, right? Let's do it for them. So finally, I'm just about 40-ish, and they said, okay, this is not viable financially. And I thought, here is my chance. Now they don't have me plugged in back into one of the services again. I need to make a break before they think, okay, we're going to plug Darlene here. And so that's when I started looking around. We went to a couple of places, and then we came, I think this might've been the third place we visited. We visited a Methodist church, and we visited another Episcopalian church, and this one. What drew me here was I looked at the website first, and I saw missions. Think about how I was grown up. I was out in the field with my father all the time, doing the visitings, the funeral homes, the dead and the dying, as we used to say. And then we'd go calling to people's houses. Somebody that was new to the church, we'd go to their home. And so I was used to that type of level of personal involvement. And going back to having a form of godliness, but denying the power of. How many times I even, when I played at First Assembly and ministered there in various aspects, they made me wait 6 months. I said, all you got to do is pick up the phone. People all over the state know me in that particular network. But no, they had a hard road thing, and it was very sterile. Tried to make a connection, tried to invite people over to dinner, wasn't getting a lot of reciprocity. I'm thinking, why not? Don't you want it? Are you not a growing church, or do you have enough people that you're happy? You don't need anybody. Okay. And so feeling a sterility in many ways and not feeling that connection. So connection is so important. And so when I came here, I was looking at the fact that it was missions. I saw the music was really, and I thought, And then I also, Paul, really, when Paul was here, he said something that stuck with me, and I think many of us could relate. And he said when he was drawn into the Episcopal Church, he was at the communion rail, and he happened to look up. Of course, a lot of times when we're receiving communion, we're in our moment. And he happened to look up, and he looked around, and he saw so many people of different backgrounds, and he said, yet we all belong here. And that resonated with me, because I thought, yeah, I could have a chandelier swinging background. You throw me back in that area, I can manage myself in a Pentecostal world. But my heart was always drawn to the liturgy. My father-in-law is Episcopalian. We would always go to St. Paul's at Easter and Christmas up in Rochester, and my heart was drawn there. And so when I walked in, and the service and everything was just divine. And then at the end, John and Barbara Chafee came up and said hello. And then afterwards I went to coffee, and Susan Haynes came up to me, and they talked to me. And so you say, and again, that showed that openness, that curiosity, that community. And so what I think so many people my age and below are missing, especially, the way even Ginny as a cradle Episcopalian and growing up, is that sense of community, that sense of support. When we do have a crisis in our life, that we have that sense of community, we have that sense of caring. And to me, church is not just a sense of faith. It is a community. It is a network. It is a network of support. And I think that's something that so many people are missing now. And then when they have that crisis, they don't have the people, because as my father used to say, and this is one of the things growing up, I would hear things because, again, we were very close, proximity, taking phone calls. I would hear things about parishioners because many times think about it. As a parishioner, you're going to share something with a minister that you would never tell anyone else, because there's that sense of trust. There's that sense, and maybe some people are not ready to say it to God. And so this is somebody with skin on that I can talk to, and I can convey those deep hurts or something that I'm going through right now, and I can convey it to somebody I can see and I can touch. And so that's why, again, as a community, it's so important that we have each other, because we are God on earth. God is working through us, and we are that skin and that conveyance. And that's why I say God speaks to those who listen. The Holy Spirit, in many ways, several of us mentioned these little taps, and each of us could get up here and give those little stories of when we felt a nudge for some reason. We didn't know why, and then we found out why after. But it's listening to that nudge, listening to that still small voice, and being open to that. And I think I sense so much of that in this church, and that's what's kept me here. Thank you.
Is there enough time for me to talk?
Who are you?
Hi, I'm Kate Ho, Hough. Jerry Ho was my brother, and I think he's probably known to just about everybody sitting in the room right now. And he's predominantly the reason that I have come to this church. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I used to be a nurse in critical care at Lourdes Hospital, and I had wanted to go ahead and get back to school and get my degrees. So I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and had to work also when I was going to school. So I got a job at St. Vincent's Medical Center as the director of critical care nursing. And I went to the University of North Florida down in Jacksonville and got my bachelor's degrees, and I got a master's in healthcare administration. And I realized I didn't really want to be working in hospitals anymore. I wanted to get into an academic setting. So I went over to Florida State University, completed a PhD in education, started teaching at the University of North Florida, but I needed at least a master's degree in nursing to be teaching in the College of Health. So I taught there and would go back and forth every week and got a second master's in nursing so that I could work there. At the time, my mother died, and Dad moved down with us, my other two sisters, who had moved down also and followed me down to Florida. And he died in 2009, and Jerry had come down to help me uh, uh, really taking care of everything with him. And we started talking, and I told him about, we were raised as Roman Catholics in Susquehanna. I never had an affinity for the church. I just really didn't want to be involved with it at all. And Jerry had also made the switch and had become an Episcopalian. And we sat at the dining room table, and he said, you might want to consider looking at the Episcopal Church. And I said, well, I'd gone to a service for somebody who had passed away, faculty at the University of North Florida. And there's an Episcopal church here in Jacksonville. And he said, you might really want to think about it. So I went and talked to the Dean Kate Moorhead, had just come to the church at that time, St. John's Cathedral in Jacksonville. And this is a woman who you talked to her for 10 minutes and you felt like you've known her all your life. She was a phenomenal woman. Jude and Jen, my sisters who had moved down, were also looking at some way to connect with a religious tradition. And so we all took a course that Kate Moore had taught. And she's authored many, many books. And she was just so fantastic. We were all received into the cathedral down there. And when it was time to retire, unfortunately, Jude died from inflammatory breast cancer. But Jen and I decided we were going to move up here. And what we were going to do is join Trinity. Because Jerry had spoken always so highly of it and how fantastic the people were. And it sounded very much like a smaller church than the cathedral, but still with the same values, the same fellowship. And so we moved up here, and it was in the end of 2019, and we were getting ready to join the church here, and then again COVID came, and we were kind of tied up and not being able to get out, and so and I was teaching an online course because I had just semi-retired, and so we had just gotten through all of that, and we're getting ready to start to join again here, and unfortunately Jen passed away, and at probably about a week later, 2 weeks later, I had fallen at home, and last year in 2024, I was in rehabilitation center for 3 or 4 months. I got discharged and had just been going through rehab, and I think it was when the services had started again, and Susan's there. I think it was either the end of August or the beginning of September, and so I started coming to services there, and I have become a member now. Uh, uh, Dean Moore had sent up all my papers that had been received and everything to the cathedral, so I'm officially a member now, and I'm hoping that the ice and the snow will go because I am disabled now, and I have to get around in an electric wheelchair at home and a scooter when I go out. And with the ice and the snow, I haven't been able to come back, but hopefully it's going to get warm. And then I'm really looking forward to it. The people I've met have been fantastic. They have been so receptive, and I'm really looking forward to becoming a member and an active member. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you. Wow, this was fabulous. I loved hearing everyone's stories. I had no idea what they were prior. David, did you want to say anything?
Dan,
Yeah, Jamie, sure, absolutely. And anyone who needs to leave, of course you may, but we're happy to stay and hear what you have to say.
I'll make it quick. Karen mentioned home. Debbie mentioned roots. And then Bob mentioned journey. All of these things are directly connected in my life. I feel like I've come home. We were here, Barbara and I were here in 1963. Rick,
Could you just speak up just a bit? She's having a hard time.
Rick and I think four others in this room were in Troop 3. And Eero Saarinen, great architect that designed St. Louis Arch, said, life is a circle. And when you come back around to your original spot, you're home. I feel like I'm home. When I came here in 1963, I was in 5th grade. So I tell people, Trinity, we lived, Barbara and I and Rick, we lived at this church. Every weeknight, every school weeknight, we were here. Monday night, I came from Wilson over here, rode the bus with my teacher, came here, and we had Boy Scouts. Tuesday nights, Barbara and I were here in with Jack Hooten in a church. Whole 2 front rows of the church were the youth choir, girls on one side, boys on the other. And so then after church choir practice, we were in the gym, and the ECW put on roast beef, mashed potatoes dinner every Tuesday night during the school year. Wednesday night, somebody mentioned we're back here for youth basketball. So Wednesday nights was youth basketball. Thursday nights we're down in the bowels underneath the church, cleaning our camping gear together to go to Tuscarora. So we lived here at church. And the experience with Jack Hooten, Father Thompson, God and Country Award with Father Robinson was unbelievable. It's the hardest thing I ever did. It was harder than becoming an Eagle Scout. All those things were the foundation for me to be able to do the journey that I'm on, my journey.
And the people here have been so accepting of the journey that I've taken. And I just appreciate the music, Glenn's sermons. I've been junior warden at many churches, Episcopal churches. And I've always said to the priest, you know, it's like a good song that you hear, and it stays in your mind the whole week when you've heard the good song at church. Sermons need to be the same way, and Glenn's are that way. You remember what he said. Newsletters, I read every single word of his newsletter, and I remember so many newsletters I would hardly read. So I really appreciate all of you and the support that all of you have given me on the journey that I'm on. Thank you.
Everyone, yes, we are running over, but if anyone else has something on their heart they want to say, we're more than happy to hear. Otherwise, have a lovely day and a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Friday night?
Yeah.
Oh, really?